am going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. First of all, I want to emphasize something. I am no historian. I am far from a historian. I've studied a lot of history, and I have a very good grasp of the written word. But I am in no way an expert on the history of this time period that I'm referring to when I talk about Machiavelli. I'm better than the average person, but I am by no means a scholar. Now, that disclaimer done, I actually went off on a bit of a tangent here because I actually went down the definition of the word prince. And I want to point out that Machiavelli does not actually say prince in the section I was referring to, but I still want to go down this rabbit hole real fast. He opens the book with a statement about trying to attract the goodwill of a sovereign by bringing them gifts. Rulers are always being given horses, arms, gold brocades, jewels, and whatever finery. Eager myself to bring your highness some token of my loyalty, I realized there is nothing more precious or important to me than my knowledge of great men and their doings. Okay. And I want to go through this because this whole book is titled The Prince, and that's why I'm going to be talking about the word the prince. Because the nature, the meaning, the idea behind a prince has changed greatly from what it used to mean. I remember a long time ago, a very long time ago, having a class on this particular subject in, when was that? High school? Because we were actually discussing the merits of the usage of that word in relationship to historical figures. And we went over something because this prince, these princes, are not exactly what we think of today. If you go back far enough in history, way back, most princes are not actually referred to as a prince because of who their parents were. I am not going to be able to cite specific examples. If you want me to cite specific examples, you'll have to do your own digging, guys. I have studied the subject quite extensively, and I know that there are many hereditary princes throughout history. I am not talking about the noble title. I am talking about the usage of the word as a reference to other people. Because when we refer to a prince, we oftentimes are referring to their accomplishments. One of the earliest examples was, when is that, like 4,000 years ago? And they referred to someone as a prince, even though by our standards, the person was far from a prince. Maybe a merchant. We would probably call them a merchant. But they were still given the title of prince, purely because what they had accomplished was genuinely impressive relative to that day and age. Again, we wouldn't probably say that now, because most of us look at it and we go, I don't know if that's really impressive or just, semi-impressive. That whole change in how we view the world and how we work in the world is probably one of the single biggest things that is a barrier between reading older documents and thinking in the modern setting, because we live in a world that is extremely different from people in the past. You didn't have DNA. You didn't have records of family heritage. You didn't have the ability to verify those records, if they did have records at all. They could be faked quite easily, comically easy by our standards, because the greatest barrier to being able to have those records was having someone who could read and write, and most people could not read or write. And so, this idea of nobility, of being a prince, is bound and determined because of what they're able to present themselves as, who they're able to be, how people perceive them. It's very possible I could pass myself off as a prince in the ancient days. I have a good grasp of communication. I have a good grasp of social dynamics. I have a very good grasp of politics and intrigue. This gives me an advantage over the average person And a person in the past would look at me and go, man, someone with your knowledge, you're clearly acquainted with court systems. You're clearly acquainted with those things. So clearly you must be a prince. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I do have like a family title that technically has like some land over in Europe somewhere. But I'm pretty sure I do not have anything even remotely close to a claim on it. It's just a novelty to me. And that's my point. No one today would look at me and go, oh yeah, you're clearly a prince. Yeah. People would look at me today and just go, dude, you're a dude. What are you? You're like kind of weird, maybe even. Ouch. Hey, guys. But anyway, I'm sorry. I got to joke a little. We see things differently now because we are very different from the past. No one in the modern world would get sent back in time. Well, almost no one. No one decently educated. I'll have to add the caveat there. No one decently educated in the modern world would get sent back in time and be mistaken for just being a common person. Your clothes are way too nice. Your everything is way too nice. We are all princes by the old standards. And this is very much the point. In Machiavelli's day, he talks about how people struggled to hold their empires, to hold their domains, to build the domains. Some people were able to hold on to them simply because their family had always held on to them. And I don't think he refers to those people as princes. People who accomplished things were very different from just people who went through life relatively unambitiously. And this is very much my point because a prince in history is more akin to what? I'd say like a Nobel laureate, a Peace Prize winner guy, but honestly, that title has been, in my opinion, not as upheld as it could have been. It's definitely political anymore. Let's say it that way. I think that's acceptable. But it is that sense of accomplishment. You have climbed to the greatest height that can be climbed. You have reached a point very few men ever reach. You are at the pinnacle, the peak. You are a prince. And that is really what the word meant. Yes, you are a man, a king of kings, a man of men. I don't know how to say it better. You're a prince. And that is important because when you read the lines talking about how it is customary for people to bring them gifts to gain their favor, if you were to meet Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, seriously, would you just go and be like, hey, can I have a selfie? Okay, if you did that, what would he think of you? Serious. Honestly, every time I see this, I'm always just so flabbergasted. People are like, hey, I'm going to go meet Elon Musk. You know what? I want to take your picture, please. Dude, seriously? That's the height of your freaking goals? That's literally your best... You're so moronic. No offense, people. But seriously, that's moronic. You're literally having an opportunity few people will ever get. You have the opportunity to put a foot forward, to present yourself to a prince. And you want to take a picture with them? How do they see that? What do they see? Do they see someone who has accomplishments, goals, drive? Or do they just see a guy who's drifting through life and he's like, hey, this is kind of cool, right? When it says they bring gifts, they want to put a good foot forward, they want to present themselves in the best light, he means it. They really wanted to present themselves in the best way because you get one shot. You get one try. Either you pull it off or you don't. Which one will you be?